But let's get right into it. We'll start with the first college football playoff semifinal game on Thursday between Penn State and Notre Dame. It is the Capital One Orange Bowl in Hard Rock Stadium. Notre Dame currently a 2.5 point favorite, total sitting around 45-ish. So when I break this game down, there's some injury watch for both teams. By the way, these two teams have not met since 2007. It's cool to get these matchups with the expanded playoff. We're more likely to get some of these, you know, historic programs meeting each other, which I think is really cool. These two teams haven't played since 2007. The all-time series is 9-9 with one tie. So the first to reach 10 will get to this year's national championship. Injury questions. Notre Dame side, how healthy is Jeremiah Love? Had a brace on. Don't think he's going to be 100%. How healthy is Howard Cross, who's even more important with Riley Mills out for the year? And then Penn State, all eyes on Abdul Carter, whose importance can't be overstated. I mean, he's first round draft pick lock. He leads the team with 11 sacks, second nationally, 21 tackles for loss. But even more important than that, the attention that he draws opens up everything else for the others along that Penn State defensive front. Reading the tea leaf when it first happened, I thought he had a torn pec.
Mhm.
Reading the tea leaves, it might be like a joint sprain. Uh, Reading like his post, it looks like he's going to play, but how healthy will he be? How, will it flare up? Will he aggravate it? Will he be able to go at full strength for the full game? I don't think anybody knows that except
No,
maybe not even him.
let me
But
yeah,
that's a
let me say this.
yeah,
So he did not practice at the media viewing portion during Sunday. That is the last time the media will get their eyes on Penn State in practice. He wasn't available. What he was viewed with was a lot of tape on his shoulder, and Franklin said if he can play, but how effective will he be? In so many words, he said we don't know the effectiveness of how much he would have, if he does play in the game. So physically able to play, how much can he affect the game? That's the problem.
yeah, and he could have he he'd be going up against Anthony Knapp, the left tackle for Notre Dame. He's allowed a 13% pressure rate through two playoff games. That's problematic against Carter. Carter also can be used as a spy at times, and he has the speed and physicality to match Leonard. And Penn State, for what it's worth, has done an excellent job against mobile quarterbacks all year. Now, they haven't really faced many or any of the caliber of Leonard. I go back to like Garrett Green, week one. He had 10
Mhm.
carries for 5 yards, 8 for 20 if you remove the sacks. Kevin Jennings of SMU, he had 8 carries for negative 25 yards, 5 for 11 if you remove the sacks. But Penn State in general does a really good job against the quarterback run game. We'll see if Leonard can get loose here. Because when I look at this game, I, look, it seems like everyone in the world loves Notre Dame, I think, including you. I make Penn State a favorite here. I will be on Penn State. I'm waiting, sitting at 2.5 now. I'm going to wait to see if it three pops. I'm going to wait to see if I can get more intel on Carter because I do think he matters, and he matters to the spread, and he matters to how this game will play out. But look, I just can't see this. Let me start. I'll start with Notre Dame as the ball.
Yep.
I don't think Notre Dame's going to have sustained success. And if they do, getting to scoring range, they're going up against an elite red zone D, second nationally. There's going to be more field goal attempts than touchdown celebrations. The good news for Notre Dame is Mitch Jeter appears healthy, which is huge because they were 13 of 24, I think, on field
Right.
goals before last week. He was clearly not healthy. He clearly is now, and he was 3 for 3 last week against Georgia, all from 40 plus. That's important. And what I think will be a lower scoring game. I was shocked to see this total open at some shops at 50.
Yep.
It's now down to 45. I make it like 44-ish. It's under nothing for me at 45 or above. Notre Dame team total also is in play. I just the Penn State run D is elite. They can load the box here. Notre Dame is just very limited on the outside, and I think you have to attack Penn State through the air. Now, without Carter, we saw Boise State start to have more success last week. So that's why his status is important here. But you just
Yeah.
look at the last two games for Notre Dame against Indiana, it was one 98-yard run. Other than that, Indiana's defense held them in check. Last week, they scored 23 points. 14 of those 23 came within a minute span off of a strip sack, short field, and a kick return for a touchdown. It's not like their offense did much. I think the adjusted box score had them as a small loser in the game. So I just don't see Notre Dame's offense doing much. I don't think Riley Leonard and these pass catchers can consistently move the ball through the air against a nationally elite defense. I
I,
think it's going to be a
I
struggle.
I'm glad you started on this side of the ball because I think it's a complete wash. I think the other side of the ball is where you and I are going to get into our differences. So to be real quick here, Jordan Love, he was at the open practice on Sunday for Notre Dame, limited.
Jordan Love will play
I'm sorry,
on.
Jeremiah Love. I'm about to get to Jordan Faison. I've got all my J's mixed up. Jeremiah Love was available at practice, but extremely limited, wearing a brace. And frankly, I think it was more the whispers I'm hearing. It was more of show so that they have to plan for it. Tight end Cooper Flanagan is lost for the season against Georgia. He only averaged 21 snaps per game, but that is a part of a heavier package that they use for blocking the inside zone and the man blocking, the gap blocking that they do with Love. They use Riley in a ton of man and gap designed runs. I think what happened in the Sugar Bowl was once they didn't have Jeremiah Love, they used Riley Leonard complete inside zone and they used Jadarian Price to completely line up and just man gap block through A, B, and C. And you look at Leonard, I mean, he's the one that had the 32-yard explosive. He created six missed tackles as a quarterback. That is huge. Price never had a single run over 8 yards. I don't expect any of that to change against Penn State. Maybe they can contain Leonard. I think the one quarterback you didn't mention, and I went through the same exercise as you. I looked at all those quarterbacks, Will Howard, Garrett Green. I wanted to strip away their scramble yards and look at their designed attempts. Will Howard, 9 designed attempts, only 34 yards. Demon Williams, right, for Washington, 10 designed runs, 38 yards. He busted a 43-yard scramble. To me, that was a little important because we know Riley Leonard will take off if he has to, but he was held, pretty low on designed runs as far as attempts go. So I think it's a wash on this side of the ball because Leonard's going to see 28% man. Penn State runs a lot of man. We're going to talk about man-to-man coverage on the other side of the ball. Mostly he's going to see cover one. It's just a wash, like success rate 53 to 55%. That's mid FBS. I think the one thing that's notable, Stuck, there were some players during the Boise State game in the Fiesta Bowl that had some small injuries. Like, middle linebacker Kobe King had a little small injury during the Fiesta Bowl. There were a couple of other players that showed some hurt. Now they're all available at practice and they're practicing, but you can see the playoff take a toll on this Penn State defense the farther we get.
Well, I also will say Penn State has a couple extra days of prep and rest, which
Yep.
doesn't hurt this time of the year based on how the schedule broke. Great. This is a great coordinator matchup. I also was really impressed with Marcus Freeman last week. I thought he basically won them the game. I mean, their special teams were great. I thought he outcoached Kirby Smart.
Can I
Um,
say something real quick? Can I say
yeah.
something? Marcus Freeman is not Dan Lanning level. He will take chances and he does make great calls. I think he's calculated and he can be aggressive.
Yeah,
One
he'll
thing
be aggressive on fourth and ones, anywhere on the field.
one thing that came out of Penn State's presser, and it's the first time I ever heard it. James Franklin said, I'm the one that tells Andy Kotelnicki, which we're going to this. I'm the one that tells Andy Kotelnicki when to be aggressive and when to be conservative. And I think that answers a question that you and I have had all season. Who's calling the plays? Andy Kotelnicki's calling the plays. Franklin is the one that has always dictated conservative versus aggressive. So it's important to remember.
Yeah, I do think Notre Dame has an edge in that aspect. But moving on to the other side of the ball, great coordinator matchup across the board. Like the X's and O's, the chess match here between Al Golden, who's one of the best defensive coordinators in college football, and Andy Kotelnicki, who's one of the best offensive coordinators. I don't think it's going to be easy for Penn State. They're going to face just a ton of cover one. There's going to be press man on the outside against Penn State's underwhelming receivers. You're going to have, and then they have two just really good safeties. Notre Dame does, led by, of course, Xavier Watts, who's going to be roaming a lot back there. You'll see a lot of cover one robber, and I expect them. There's a lot of they're going to blitz a ton. They're going to try to shoot gaps, use stunts, try to get in the backfield, and Penn State's offensive line is vulnerable. Even though their right tackle Rucci, who filled in for the original starter, has been playing better of late. There's still some vulnerable areas, especially against the blitz, and you saw that at times against Boise State. Notre Dame's going to bring it. They're going to keep guys in the box. They're going to try to slow down Allen and Singleton, and then they're probably going to be looking very hard at that Ohio State tape and how they handled Tyler Warren. And
Mhm.
I don't know if Watts can't, he's in the free safety, they like to give him a lot of freedom. I don't think he'd be able to stop Warren one on one. He's from
They're
a
going to
size
try
perspective.
man to man. They're going to put them heads up and they'll see if it works. You're right, though.
Yeah, but from a size perspective, I don't necessarily think that'll work on him. I expect them to bracket Warren like Ohio State did. Ohio State has excellent safeties too. They bracketed Warren a lot. So I think there's going to be extra attention on Warren. I think Notre Dame's going to load the box here, try to stop the run. How does Penn State move the ball? Because I think in this game there's going to be a ton of runs with two slow-paced offenses. The clock's going to be moving throughout. Both teams are going to lean on their defense, feel each other out. It's like under to me, I think is the look, even though its numbers come
Mhm.
down a bit. But the way that you have to beat this Notre Dame defense is you have to throw outside the hash marks, and you have to throw deep, and you have to take shots. Look no further than the USC game. And Jordan Maeda, that's all he did the whole game was just throw down the sidelines. And now, granted, USC has much better receivers than Penn State. That's Penn State's weakness, and that's one of the reasons Notre Dame's even going to lean into it even more, saying, "Hey, press man on the outside with our corners, and then our safeties, linebackers, defensive linemen are all dedicated to slowing down Warren and the run game. And then if Penn State's receivers can beat us deep, hat tip to them." So can the questions for me is can Penn State's offensive line protect and especially against the blitz and some of the stunts they're going to see? That remains to be seen. Number two, who will step up on the outside? The obvious answer is Harrison Wallace.
Yes.
My answer is my favorite prop in this game, which I put in, and it will lead into my same game parlay. Omari Evans, over 20 and a half receiving yards. I, I think he can get this in one catch. I mean, he averages, I think, 19.8 yards per reception, which is top 30 nationally. I think they're going to try and take a couple deep shots to Evans. And if you look, he only got one target between weeks 9 and 12. He has 17 over the past 5 games. Average routes have jumped from 13 and a half per game to 20. And over this most recent 5 game stretch, he's caught 9 passes for 177 yards, cleared 20 and a half yards, his 20 and a half yardage prop. 4 of those 5 games, he had at least 49 in three. And I don't expect Penn State to run away with this game like the SMU game, which just they could just then run it and they didn't have to throw it in a favorable game state. So yeah, I think they're going to take some shots to him. He's the fastest guy on the team. He's really coming to his own. He's a ton of confidence now. He's a guy that was raw. Like he was a quarterback in high school. Touchdowns in back-to-back games. Had a touchdown against Oregon, touchdown against Boise State. Or did he have a touchdown against SMU? I don't know. He had two touchdowns in. I know he had a touchdown last week. Touchdowns in 2 of his past 3 games. I do know that. So I think Amari Evans is going to get, I don't know, 2 to 3 deep shots at least here, and he's going to have opportunities. I think maybe 4-ish targets is what he's going to end up with. So he might end up being the key to Penn State winning this game because I think that they're going to have to hit. The receivers are going to step up. They're going to have to hit explosives on the outside with their receivers, which has been a major question mark all year. Notre Dame knows that. Notre Dame does this anyway, but they're going to allow for opportunities. Ken Wallace or Evans make the plays. I think basically that's what this comes down to. My same game parlay for this, Evans, anytime touchdown, 25 plus yards, Notre Dame team total under 23 and a half. I think that's the formula for Penn State to win. It pays 11 to 1 or plus 1080. Um, so yeah, look out for Amari Evans. I think he might be the key to Penn State against this heavy cover one, heavy press man that's going to be focused on taking away Singleton and Allen and most importantly, Tyler Warren. I thought about some Singleton props because I do think that Kotelnicki's going to have to use some misdirection to kind of use that Notre Dame aggressiveness against them.
Mhm.
They're going to have to get Singleton involved in the passing game some. But one, like they're going to have to use their backs. Like last week, you had to use Singleton a ton in blitz pickup. Two, do you trying to forecast the split between Allen and Singleton is tough. Allen is the better pass protector and blitz picker upper, so he might get more snaps here. So I just wanted to stay away from.
Which they're going to need.
Yeah, they needed it last week. That's why Singleton. I don't think he had any catches last week, right?
Right, right,
So he was used in blitz protection a ton. So Evans is my favorite prop over 20 and a half.
right.
I don't know. It's probably going to move because I just bet it. And I can't bet a ton on these things. 24, 23 and a half is fine. Um, and that's my same game parlay. I like Penn State. I make them a favorite. I also like, since I like Penn State, I like the under. Probably go with Notre Dame team total under Penn State. I'm waiting for the three. I make them a favorite here. You like Notre Dame. I
Yep.
think it'll be a super close game. Like, and the one thing that scares me is what you just talked about is that is Freeman going to make more plus EV decisions and be while James, small game James, turtles up and gets too conservative. That is a real fear of mine in a game that should be super tight. But I got to play my numbers here with Penn State. Um, what say you? What are you seeing here?
Don't blame you at all. Like I don't listen. If you're following me in the app, then you got a cheap Notre Dame money line. If you're following Stuck, you're going to get a Penn State +3. And this is how you play the game. You play props on the over early. You play props on the under late. That's just how you handle this market. I gave this side of the ball like the national championship treatment. I went as deep as I possibly could. So we'll start with the run game. Katron Allen created 9 missed tackles against Boise. Why is that amazing? Because he averaged 2.3 missed tackles forced before the Fiesta Bowl, like per game, and he created 9. I think maybe that goes to show how bad Boise State's tackling was. He did have 4 rushes over 10 yards. I'm going to give a lot of that to Boise State's defense being second to last in tackling. Now, you mentioned Rucci at right tackle, center Nick Dawkins, among the best rushing run blocking grades of the offensive line. Left tackle Drew Shelton, consistently the worst all season in run block grades. So you're going to see Singleton, Allen go off to the right. And what is Penn State run all the time? Outside zone. What have we been screaming since Service Academy games of Notre Dame? They cannot defend inside zone whatsoever. The defensive interior is where to attack them. But that's not what Allen and Singleton do. They go straight at the tackle. They go straight at Rucci at right tackle, or whoever's going to be in that spot, and they try to bounce out and create an explosive. Irish have the advantage here completely. 58% success rate against outside zone. They allow a big play on only 6%. And if Penn State wants to switch off and do, gap man, straight up hand off the ball, Notre Dame 67% against that success rate, only allow a 6% big play rate. I think the Penn State offense on the ground is probably going to average 2.5 to 3 yards per carry, and it's just not going to get pretty, and it's not going to get first downs. Now, when we go to this passing game,
Do you agree with me that they got to hit explosives to the receivers?
they do, and is Kotelnicki watching the USC tape? And I say that because if you want to beat Notre Dame, I think this is the prototype. USC came out and had a 10-play drive to start the game, turnover on downs. After that drive, Lincoln Riley threw everything away and had 16 of the next 22 first downs start with a pass. They had a 50% first down rush rate before that. Like they went ham on first down pass. And
And
that is
like, I think Maeda threw it 48 times. I think maybe 35 of them were outside the hashes.
after that first drive, they were like, screw it. We're going pass and we are going at them. I think it's worth noting Kotelnicki's what he does in scripted and what they do in adjustments. Kotelnicki, a very respectable plus 5.8 points offensively in the first quarter, one of the highest second quarter totals at 12.5. You can adjust against Kotelnicki, and he is going to be able to adjust back. It's the second half where he has really cooled off. So keep that in mind if you're live betting a total, like I agree with you completely on the total. I just think if Kotelnicki has some success, which I'm going to get to the receivers here, like you mentioned, I think he will have success in the first quarter until Al Golden, the defensive coordinator of Notre Dame, realizes what's going on, makes the changes. I think the second half is going to be fascinating, which Golden should rule. Now, Aller, let's talk about Drew Aller because you've heard me chirp just all year. This kid does not make mistakes in a pressured pocket. Well, I got my eyes on him the entire game. And I've kind of changed my opinion of this kid. He's going to see a ton of man coverage here from Notre Dame. He's going to see some cover one. He's been pretty good against that 59% success rate. He's got a high EPA, but look at the defenses maybe that he's faced. I think the problem for me is what happens when he gets pressure. Now, Notre Dame is, let me talk about the passing real quick. Notre Dame is seventh in contested catch rate. There is one corner you can pick on. It's Christian Gray, and he always lines up at right corner. He's always on the right side of the offense. He's allowed 3 straight games of opposing quarterbacks' NFL rating to be over 100. In those 3 games, USC, Indiana, and Georgia, 15 catches on 22 targets. He has allowed a ton of yards. And you ask who will be lining up against him? I love Amari Evans like you do. He is hot. He is rising. I don't think he's peaked, but he's going to draw Leonard Moore. And Leonard Moore has been fantastic in single coverage. Harrison Wallace is the one that's going to draw Christian Gray. So in the app, I did put in Harrison Wallace over 41 and a half yards. If you want to go head to head on Evans yards versus my yards number for Wallace, we can do that and put it on the board if people need a board bet. But I think Harrison Wallace is the one that's going to be picking on Christian Gray simply because these two, it's exactly where they line up. Now, let's talk about the rush because this is where I made the bet on Notre Dame. And I was
I mean,
immediately,
to be fair, with Evans lined up wide, well, last week he lined up in the slot 12 times,
yep,
left 12 times, right 12.
right.
So maybe he'll get some looks at because I agree that Gray can be a little flat-footed at times,
Yes.
and he's attackable.
Yeah. And it seems like that's like Harrison Wallace's spot.
I don't mind Wallace overs either. So
Yeah.
Penn State has to hit explosives. There's going to be opportunities to do it.
Yep.
Um,
But there's a problem, and it's the pressure. Um, Boise State for the first quarter was dominated. And you know why they were dominated? Because defensive coordinator Eric Shenander sent 4 rushers.
yeah, and they couldn't get any pressure with
Couldn't get
four.
any. Then they decided to go 5 plus. And there is tape out there on YouTube, and I mention it in full preview over on Action Network, and I give credit to the guy that made this tape. Boise State started doing acts, crossers. They started using their defensive tackle to stick Nick Dawkins, the center, and they used a linebacker to loop around. Here's the problem. Not only did that offensive line have a hell of a time ever picking that up, Drew Aller went up to the line of scrimmage and switched the protection multiple times in the second, third, and fourth quarter. And every time he did it, he was wrong. The Penn State offensive line would shift left, they would slide right. They missed every single time. So as
Well,
much as
also, Singleton's not great in pass play. He missed some blocks too.
he's not, but Aller changed the protection, and Dawkins like you can see Dawkins nod, turn around, tell the line, then they slid the wrong way. It's on Aller. It's completely on Aller. And here's the other problem. Yes, he has not created a turnover worthy play in 130 something pressures this year, right? Because he doesn't throw it away. The kid is incapable of throwing the ball away. He had one throw away on a rollout that was I thought he was going to break his leg just running. He takes way too many sacks. And to give you an idea, who is one team on the schedule that really gave them a lot of problems, gave Penn State problems that you didn't expect? It was Minnesota. When you look at Minnesota, SMU, Boise, and Ohio State, they all generated double-digit pressures. In those games, Aller took 11 sacks and he only had 3 throwaways. Yeah, he won't put you in jeopardy by throwing an interception because he doesn't throw it away at all. He will tuck it and take a sack, and that completely takes Penn State's offense out of the mix. Also, 2.9 seconds before release. And I get it. Sometimes you're waiting for Tyler Warren to float from the left side of the field to the right side of the field, and some of those passes can be long. But that's a real number that is just not going to fly at the NFL level. So you look at what Notre Dame did. Al Golden must be watching those axe crossers by defensive tackles and the linebackers and the loops and just dreaming up schemes of where he's going to bring pressure because the offensive line, Allard can't ID it. The offensive line slides the wrong way. And Notre Dame, what you saw against Georgia was a masterpiece. And I think you're going to see it again. Notre Dame, 9 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, 13 pressures against Georgia's offensive line. That's a real problem. And I think Penn State, a lot of drives are going to end on that. And if Allard cannot pick up protection packages, we're going to get our shots with our wide receivers stuck. We're going to get them. But I think Allard is going to take them out of drives by his bad decision making and telling Nick Dawkins where the protection should be. So I'm on Notre Dame money line. I agree with I make it 2, so I agree with you. 3, you got to buy it. That's just the smart way to play this.
Yeah, I'm at Penn State a favorite. Do you want so for uh I'm up 10-8 in head-to-heads. Do you want to put Penn State Notre Dame? I'll give you even money on money line.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Okay.
listen, we're the podcast that came out. I said Notre Dame Ohio State national championship. I'm not backing off of that.
By the way, I talked about a future last week. Notre Dame versus PSU. Ohio State plus 350, plus 340 there it was.
Yeah.
Guess who forgot to bet it? Me. Now they're favorite. There's
Did
a
did you have a
minus
bottle of Vouv? What happened here?
110. Completely slipped my mind. I'm so mad. So hopefully a couple of you listen. By the way, for the long shots and the same game parlays, you can follow all of the same game parlays and all the long shots from our experts who are much better than I am. Uh, in the Action app, all in one place. Just follow Parlay Express. Although I am 6-1 in player props. This my one loss was Nick Singleton over receiving yards. It's been a really good bowl season, betting wise, but it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. So hopefully these two games in the national title go well.